So I should be able to execute the shot the way I want it to. If it goes wrong, well, it's solely on me. Or I could do the classic and blame the disc. Let's see how it goes. Howdy y'all, Robbie C Disc Golf here at the University of Montevallo Disc Golf Course here in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, as I was thinking about all the content out there that's on YouTube about disc golf, I was looking and seeing that there's a lot of mentality while you're on the course. Do this while you're on the course, tips for on the course. But there isn't a lot of, hey, here's me actually playing holes and letting you get an insight into what the player's thinking. So that's exactly what we're gonna do today. We're gonna pick 3 holes and I'm gonna walk you through every single shot that I'm taking and why I'm taking that shot, what I'm taking into account while I'm taking that shot, so that you guys get clear insight into what is actually going through my mind. So with all that said, let's jump in. Hole 1 is pretty ideal for an opening hole. It's not too much of a bomber hole at only 260 feet, and really it's an open fairway except for OB on the left and right, with both of those being roads, so a good warm-up hole to get started here on the course. Now, hole 1 at this course is pretty simple, but it's really helpful to understand what I'm paying attention to on the hole. It's about 260 feet, so I'm probably going to be throwing a mid-range for me. Some of you might be throwing a fairway driver, and some of you crushers may be throwing a putter on this hole. But for me, I'm going to be throwing a mid-range. And so I pulled out all the mid-ranges in my bag, as I know that's about the distance that I have to get there at 260. So as I'm looking at this fairway, I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's pretty open, but if I go hard left, I'm gonna land in the parking lot, it's gonna be OB. So anything that's too overstable, I'm probably gonna go ahead and eliminate. So my Justice is out, and honestly, my Lucid EMAC Truth is a little beefy sometimes, so it's gonna leave 2. Which leaves me with, I have an understable Westside Tersis, and I have a somewhat understable, and it's kind of flippy, Mako 3. Now these are both great options if I'm not feeling too confident, and I just wanna send it straight down the fairway, knowing that it can turn over. The wind's pretty chill though today, so I'm actually going to play my Fusion EMAC Truth, and I'm going to try to just play it straight down the fairway with a little bit of hyzer so that it should finish right towards the basket. I'm not too worried about it flipping over and turning to the right because this disc doesn't do that to me very often, but if you're throwing your straight mid and that understable mid, that is the worry with that Tersis and that Mako, that I could turn it over too much and find the OB on the right. So Fusion EMAC Truth should be the winner for us. Let's see how it goes. Now, as I'm walking up to this tee shot, I'm thinking to myself, at 260, I'm gonna have to give this thing a decent bit of power, but I'm not trying to throw it too hard because whenever I try to overpower my mid-ranges, they never seem to fly the way that I want them to. So as one last check, I'm gonna walk up here and I'm going to do the classic move that you see people do, and that's test the wind. Now, I don't suggest, if you're really like over concerned about it, don't test the wind on every shot because then you kind of look like a tool. But for me, I'm gonna test the wind on my drive especially because it seems like there's not a lot of wind out there, but if I don't check the wind, I could be messed up. So I'm just gonna pick up some grass, I'm gonna drop it, and boom, as you saw, bang, there's no wind. So I should be able to execute the shot the way I want it to. If it goes wrong, well, it's solely on me. Or I could do the classic and blame the disc. Oh, yeah, oh! Now, I like to visualize my line. I like to see that that's about where I want to put it on and then bring it back to the pocket. So that's what I do on drives, but your routine's all about you. So here we go. I'd say it worked out pretty well. I'm thinking, all right, it seems like we threw a really good shot and that we should be pretty much parked. But I always tell myself, if I look parked, add 10 feet. And here's why I do this. Because if I tell myself that I'm parked as I'm walking up to the putt and then I realize I'm not, instantly all this like worry and stress hits me while I enter the putting green. And that's not a healthy mindset to have right before you make the putt, thinking, oh, this was supposed to be easy. And now it still is somewhat easy, but I'm making it harder than it looks in my head. And so I always tell myself, add 10 feet to whatever I think I hit. And if I do that, add 10 feet to whatever I think I hit. And if I do that, most of the time, I find myself in a pretty healthy state on the putting green. This is every bit of parked, and it's the dream. Obviously, not every shot's gonna work out like this, but for today, this works out really well. So You're gonna walk up, you're gonna close out your putt, use your mini to mark it, and the best putter is always a driver that lands underneath the basket. Bang, that's a birdie for hole 1. Now walking to hole 2, and let's talk about mentality between holes, because it's also something that a lot of people don't discuss in a lot of YouTube content. I just birdied hole 1, and not only did I birdie it, but it was pretty much one of the easiest birdies you can get in terms of dropping the disc back in the basket. So what does that mean for the rest of my round? What does that mean for the next few holes? It means that I'm telling myself, man, you're throwing well today. I know that you've only thrown 1 drive, but I gotta give myself the confidence that going into the next hole, I executed the shot. I knew what I wanted to do. Words are hard. That was weird. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was able to step up and execute on that shot. So there's no reason that I shouldn't be able to do that for the rest of the holes, even as you're gonna see when the lines become a lot more difficult to hit. So if you've done well, tell yourself, hey, keep doing it. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to do it. And let's say I started poorly and I shanked it or I threw it OB. Then what I would be telling myself is not, all right, you're gonna make those up on the rest of the course. I'm gonna think for a second on, okay, what felt weird about that drive? And then I'm gonna think about what would have felt right. I'm gonna visualize what would it look like for me to smash that hole and to play it really well. I'm gonna keep playing that in my mind over and over again until I get to the next hole. And then I'm gonna pick up on the same mentality that I had I birdied it, which is, you can execute these shots. Now go do it. Speaking of executing shots, let's jump into hole 2.
So hole 2 starts to bring in some obstacles. You've really got 3 options here for lines. You can go on the left side. You can head straight down the middle with an easy shot to just rest down the hill, or you can head down the right side for a hyzer line. It's a pretty low ceiling.
So walking to hole 2, it's 247 feet, and as you can see, there's really 3 obvious choices. Now, if I wasn't injured, I actually really like the Lucid X Felon forehand over the right side. It hangs me out OB, but it brings me in through a nice skip into the basket. It should give me a clear open putt for the birdie. But like I said, we're injured, so the Felon's out of options. I also feel really good on that smooth hyzer route. If I have the option to play a hyzer because I'm comfortable with it, I'm always gonna try to take that option. So my Lucid EVAC Truth is pretty tempting, but I noticed when we walked the hole, that ceiling's really low, which means that I'm gonna have about this high of a gap to actually shoot this through, and that's pretty tough to execute on, pretty low probability. Now, that leaves me with my Fusion Warden. I can either shoot this Fusion Warden straight down the middle, which is a pretty open gap, and that can hit some trees. But what I'm gonna try to do is, I'm gonna try to be a little risky on this one. I just picked up a birdie back there, and let's see if I can throw this Fusion Warden on a backhand over and like leave it on an anhyzer line all the way out there to that gap. We'll see if it works or not. It feels like the most executable shot that I have in my arsenal right now. Now I can feel the wind a little bit on this one, so I know I said try not to check the wind on every hole, but like I said, I can feel it, and even watching some of the trees, I can see it. So I'm gonna drop the wind. Okay, it doesn't feel like it, but I'm watching as the leaves are blowing this way, so I know that I have a little bit of a right to left, which means that if I leave the disc up on a hyzer, it's gonna push over. So that should eliminate the Lucid EMAC Truth line for me, because I would have to throw it either super flat, but if it was a little up on the right side, it would push it out of its line. So I'm gonna try to keep the face exposed of the disc on that line, hoping that it'll fight through. Let's see how it goes. Once again, I'm gonna line it up. That's what I'm going for. Bring it back, and here we go. Okay. A little short. You can't always do this during casual rounds because you don't want to be the, hey, I'm just throwing one more person. But I want to see what it would have looked like for me to throw this Lucid EMAC Truth on that right line and see how that works out. So let's see how it feels. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to bring it back into the pocket. All right, so you saw that Lucid EMAC Truth land OB on the road. Now, it'd be very easy to say, wow, what a dumb disc. But reality, and I have to accept it if I want to become a better golfer, is that the disc did what it was supposed to do. I threw it early, and therefore it didn't go on the line that I wanted it to go on. But I said before I threw, man, I think the wind's blowing right to left, and I can feel it blowing right to left, which means that it could possibly be pushed OB, or it could be pushed at all. I didn't think it was going to be pushed OB, but here it is. I executed that shot and honestly my Warden shot both poorly, but one of them being executed poorly put me OB, and one of them being executed poorly put me in bounds. And whenever you go OB, you're always going to add strokes. So clearly the right choice was the Warden, even though it's not parked next to the basket. And that's what sometimes I have to accept, is every shot's not going to land next to the basket, but I'd rather end in bounds and short than out of bounds and far. All right, so my Warden landed a bit short, and I would say I'm probably 50 or 60 feet away from the basket, if not a little farther, maybe 70. Now I've got two options here. I can either run the putt and take a nice easy jump putt, but notice those branches are what I'm looking at. They kind of close off the ceiling. So running that putt's going to be pretty tough, especially because I'm more of a push putter, so I'm going to leave it high. I don't have that spin bullet. But honestly, even if I did have the spin bullet, what I'm looking at is that behind the basket, about 20 feet past the basket, is actual water, which will be OB again. So with OB resting right behind the basket, I've got two options. I can either just lay it up, or I can try to give it a nice, decent run, but enough of a run that it's going to come down. I'm going to opt for the second one, but I'm also going to show you what it looks like for me to give a nice, simple, just pitch up to the basket and take my par and walk away. Honestly, that's about what it would look like for me to lay up. But I'm going to show you what an intentional layup looks like instead of a half-hearted bid for the basket. So when I'm throwing an intentional layup, I'm going to throw something that's a little softer, like I have the classic soft plastic here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to think to myself, what's my comfort zone? I'm not trying to land it in the basket. I'm trying to lay up next to the basket. And so let's say my comfort zone is 15 feet. That means I'm going to draw a 30-foot circle from one side to the other, knowing that I can land inside of that. If I get anywhere inside that, I'm making that putt. So I don't even have to land next to the basket because I can putt from multiple feet away. So, bang. Both of those putts, taking a safe bid with my putt and laying up, both of them are going to net me the same result. Now I could have done this and taken a crazy wild bid right at it. But notice that putt's going to be way harder to hit than my previous putt. So I'm pretty happy with the options that I had, playing nice and easy just for par. I'll get birdies later. Once again, just taking a second to realize this was my first putt, which is basically a drop in. It's less than 10 feet. And then I have a putt back there with terrible footing where I'm going to have to stand in the middle of a branch or in the middle of some trees or step out and try to make this putt back at the basket, because I decided to be aggressive rather than say, hey, I'm gonna go for it, but play it safe. So, I did want to take a second to talk about putts just like that, because a lot of people get very stressed about that. Well, what if I shank it right there? Get rid of those thoughts. You could basically, from right here, I understand that I'm 6 feet tall, 6'3", so I know that I can almost drop it in. But if you're walking up to a putt like that with no confidence, how are you going to walk up to a putt that's 15 feet away with confidence? You have to tell yourself, this is a gimme. I'm going to make this. And the reality is that sometimes things will go south and it won't fall in. And that's okay. We have to forget about those moments and move past them. When you're putting this close, it's in. Just tell yourself it's in. Step up here, my normal routine, even from this close, and I'm gonna line it up, I'm gonna lock it back, and I'm gonna drop it right in the basket. I'm not gonna throw it super hard so that it just bounces out. Say it with me. You can make short putts.
Hole 18 is a classic tunnel shot, tight gap off the tee box, fairway, pretty short, basket sits down at the end, but it's heavy mess on the right and left if you get off.
Hole 3 is probably one of the trickiest holes on the entire course. It's a eyesore, and most of the time that I walk up to hole 3, I'm usually telling myself, all right, if we can get a par here, whoo, what a save. Now, it's only 189 feet, and I think we can let distance be deceiving sometimes. It's 189 feet, but it's an incredibly tight tunnel the entire way down. As you could see in the course preview, it's jail on both sides, and so I've got to go ahead and get out of my own head. You know, I could walk up and be like, okay, I could hit this tree, I could hit this tree, I could hit this tree, and I could hit this tree. And you know what? That's true. I could hit all of those trees. But I could also tell myself, you're gonna crush this line. You're gonna throw it exactly where you wanna go. And that's the thought that I need to keep on the forefront of my mind. I need to be focused on that at all times. So there are really 2 lines that I see available here for me, and those are the forehand line and the backhand. So let's start with the forehand line. If I was throwing the forehand line, which I'm not, if I was throwing the forehand line, I'd really have 2 options, and that would be my VIP Harp from Westside Discs or my AVR X3 from Innova. Now, both of these are pretty overstable, so that means when I send them on that forehand line, they're just gonna go straight and then come back. I would actually opt for the AVR X3 on this hole because it's just a little straighter than the Harp, and the Harp is a little bit beefier, and it's a 4-speed compared to a 3-speed. So I'm gonna have to throw this a little harder for it to do its job, as opposed to here, I can just go nice and soft. On a shot like this, I wanna throw something that's easy to throw. If I'm going full power trying to blast into this thing, it's probably not gonna work out very well. But on the backhand line, I'm actually gonna throw my Fusion Warden once again. And here's what I'm looking to do here. Is I'm gonna try to throw it nice and flat with just a little bit, just a tiny bit of anhyzer, so that it'll ride down the fairway nice and straight and turn over just slowly, which should put me right next to the basket. But if it lands me in the middle of the fairway, that's a win. I'd rather be in the middle of the fairway 50 feet up from here than 150 feet down and all the way on the left or the right. So with that in mind, it's very wooded, so I'm not really too concerned about the wind on this hole, so I'm not even gonna check it on this. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw my shots. I'm gonna try to give myself as much of the box as possible because these trees could be a worry. So I'm gonna start on the back right, and I'm actually just gonna move up the right side of the fairway. Now, what I could do incorrectly is I could be thinking that I need to turn the disc over, and lately I've had that trouble that when I want the disc to anhyzer on a backhand, I actually swing it out wide, and that's gonna put me in trouble here. So I need to just be thinking straight back, straight through, straight back, straight through, and hopefully that's gonna work out well. Here we go. Bang, we executed the shot. Now remember, I'm thinking in my mind, I threw a really good line. So there's a strong chance that I could get up here and be parked. But the 10-foot rule, I'm walking up here not expecting to be parked, and I'm taking myself 10 feet away, which actually worked out better this time because my disc is definitely not as close as I thought it would have been. Now, let's see where they both landed, and then I'm gonna take you backwards on a, hey, here's what would have happened if we would have scrambled and walked through that shot too. So remember, I told myself, hey, what about 10 feet? And look at this. I am at the edge of the circle, if not a little bit outside. For those of you who don't know what that means I'm a little over 33 feet away. So I've got a nice little putt, and if I had told myself, Robbie, you're parked, this would have been really disappointing to come across because I would have thought, are you kidding me? I thought I threw it a lot better than that. But knowing that I told myself, hey, maybe you're not parked, maybe you're 10 feet further than that, instantly, this putt's actually a lot better than I thought it could have been. Now, because of that, I hope that I'm gonna be able to turn this into a birdie. And I'm gonna tell myself, you've made plenty of putts like this before, so why is it any different today? Just like we told ourselves on executing the drives, I'm gonna tell myself, you've made 33-foot putts before, you made 35-foot putts before. This is no different. Go drain that putt. Tweet, tweet. Oh, hey there. Let's say that I ended up over here. Oh, you're not too sure what it looks like to end up over here? Let's bring you in here. This is my look from over here. Now I've got a gap over here to the right that is somewhat open, and I could be looking straight to the basket right there. Now that gap exists and it's out there, but it's pretty tight to hit. So looking at my lie, looking out there is the safe option, there is the risky option. I'm gonna have a tough choice here. The choices are to either go ahead and punch out and try to play out there and try to get closer to the basket. Remembering the layup principle that I had on the last hole, that is, I can make putts that aren't right next to the basket. Or I could take the risky route and try to punch out and go that direction. We're gonna throw both and see which one works out better, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you, it's probably the safe route. All right, so here we are. This is me trying to punch out the straight route. I know I said that I'm not throwing forehands, but this is the only option with the forehand, and it's pretty light, so my doctor will forgive me. Yep, kicked a tree, just like I thought I would, instead of taking the safe route and going out. And let's go look and see where I land. Reference point, this is me standing in the middle of the fairway. Now, you can see over here and here in the blue is where the risky route landed me, and it's a long putt that still has terrible footing. When I decided to take the safe route, look where it put me. It put me right here, which is a familiar putt. A putt that, I don't know, I remember a guy putting from here recently and getting a bird. Oh yeah, we've made that putt before. And so here I'm making par, there I'm making a risky putt. Scrambling is super important to not always take the hero route directly to the basket. Sometimes going away from the basket puts you in a better position to actually save strokes. All right, y'all, so that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed these 3 holes, diving into kind of what I'm thinking while I walk through the holes and play on a course. This is a course that I probably only play about once a year, so it was nice to come out here and kind of bring you into what I'm thinking. My game's improved a lot since I was last out here, and so it was really fun to come out here and tackle this course with you guys inside my head. It's not just for wearing hats, right? With that in mind, what did you guys think of this format? Is this something that was helpful to you? Would you want to see more of it? I know that each of these holes was 280 feet or less. So do you guys want to see this on some longer holes or things like that? Or were the shorter ones helpful because they're not as much a punch and drive? You guys let me know. Would love to keep putting content like this out here if you guys enjoyed this. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell. That way you can know when things are happening. Hope you guys enjoyed it and look forward to seeing you guys next week at our next video. So keep throwing some discs, y'all. See ya!